Do Americans regularly start conversations with complete strangers? Yes, we definitely will. We're simultaneously overly friendly and obnoxiously rude, apparently. There's a guy that drives past me on my walk on his way to work. And he will pull over every day just to talk about my dog. I don't know anything about him. But he saw my dog with the cone of shame back in November of last year and he stopped to check on her ever since. We are very chatty in the Midwest. Especially in the Midwest, but yeah, all the time. Sometimes. I don't. My grandma would have a full conversation with a stranger on the grocery aisle. Maybe it's an old person thing. I'd respond to a senior without any thought. Middle age or young adult. I immediately think, WTF, are you selling? Or is it a cult? Yes. I absolutely do. I love the people I meet too. I do pay attention to their vibe. If they seem not interested, I just back off. I work as a registered nurse. So I'm accustomed to talking to strangers. I do. We're all going to die one day. If we're in a place together and there's little going on, why not chat? They certainly do when they are tourists somewhere. I've lived in a couple of touristy places and the visiting Yanks are always randomly speaking people. Especially in museums. If you happen to taking an interest in the same exhibit piece at the same time, just happened to me yesterday in the National Museum of Scotland while looking at the Lewis chess pieces. This old American lady started talking to me about the ones in the British Museum. Yes, why? What's unusual about that? Only all the time. Depends on the situation though. Yes. All of the time. I make friends everywhere I go. BTW. Best thing to do if you are lost in NYC: stand in front of a subway map. People will crowd around and argue about the best way for you to get home. Edit. NY here. This is strictly regional. Americans are not in any way, shape, or form a homogeneous group. Especially when it comes to social niceties. In certain parts of the country, everyone actively ignores everyone around them except in certain defined settings. In other parts of the country, seeing someone you don't know is an immediate prompt to engage them. It is largely a product of population density, though there are other factors. Southern hospitality is a turn of phrase for a reason. Mainly in the South, Southerners to me are friendlier. I'm weirdly extra Midwest friendly. Yes. I can have a 15-minute convo with a dead man about his opinions on the subpar pillow in his casket. That said, I've made this a niche career. I'm an engineer and geologist in the environmental industry. I talk to socially awkward engineers, archaeologists and geos all day. I'm in charge of getting folks out to random project sites across the US. I can coax the most introverted into long-winded diatribes on gas prices. It's a skill. Yes. Nearly every time I leave the house. Why wouldn't you start a conversation with a complete stranger? How would you ever meet people or interact authentically with locals when you travel? You just have to be respectful and honor social cues that show they're not interested so you don't become intrusive or rude. Yes. Especially down south. I was at a fair yesterday and I met a bunch of people. I even got invited to a birthday party. It's great fun. It depends where you live, I think. In my area, it's super weird. Unless you have something you want to tell that person to help them. Example, you see someone buying something, you might tell them it's cheaper somewhere else close, etc. Yes. And it's one of the funniest and most interesting things you can do to fill life with surprises. If you are not initiating random conversations with people, then you are the NPC. Yeah. I was on a long bus ride hour or so I just started randomly talking to the guy next to me. Someone prob 30-40 years my senior, and we just talked about literally dancing for like almost the whole ride lol. Never saw him again and didn't ever expect to. But it passed the time and we both seemed to enjoy the connection. Albeit temporary. As much as I hate living here, in Texas we do speak to strangers in passing and strike up convos with random people. Cashiers, people in line, etc. And it isn't abnormal unless you aren't from here. Same experience in Alabama and Mississippi. When I visited CA, I was floored that no one thanked anyone for anything holding the door. Buying anything at any store, if you picked something up for someone, they acted like you were trying to steal it lol. I guess growing up in the South, it seems courteous to me to speak to people you are around. But I can see where it would be awkward AF if you aren't used to it. Where I'm from, yes, it's very common. Why you want to talk about it? It was more common before smartphones. Yes, totally, especially at grocery store or bus stops. I'm sorry. Yes, and it's not just Americans. When I have traveled to a location full of Canadians, they did it too. I had a blast chatting with them. We're all on this rock together, let's pretend we each don't exist or not and share whatever brief moment we have. Yes, we do. How ya doin'? 0. Yep. Frequently. Think friendly golden retriever. Willing to be friends with everyone. But we do have boundaries. We just express them differently. Being friendly can actually be a defense if used as a test to see if the other person is open or puts up walls. We don't tend to trust those who are not willing to at least be polite. Who are you? Don't talk to me. I do it all the time. But my kids are baffled and ask me, how do you do that? How do you just talk to someone you've never met before? Otherwise everyone would know no one. That is mostly who we talk to. I'm from Michigan. It's common to talk to a complete stranger. The other day, I was in the elevator at the hospital and struck up a conversation with a nurse. I loved her accent and she told me she's from Bulgaria. She asked if I knew anything about Bulgaria. And I said they use a Cyrillic alphabet. She smiled and said, "That's right. I have lived in Texas. And I found you can't do that there. They look at you weird. It's definitely regional. It is more common in different parts of the country. I'm from the Northeast and we are more likely to keep to ourselves." On my first trip to Chicago, I was shocked when a whole family started a conversation with my friends and me on the subway from the airport. Although in bars it's pretty common to just talk to new people. I live in New York. And you talk to strangers all the time. Tourists are everywhere. And I have good-natured chats with natives. My wife does. I generally do not. Yes, they do. I don't, but people always start conversations with me when I'm out shopping. I sure as hell don't, but I'm an introvert. I am very friendly when approached, but I would never start a conversation. American extroverts definitely will though. I traveled to Sweden recently and I was at a bar with a friend. And guess who went up to us and made a bunch of conversation? Another American traveler lol. Yes, I do often. In certain regions, people are more friendly than others. In New England, people will leave you alone. In the Midwest, Texas and California, expect to be chatted to. Depends on the part of the country. I personally found that people are much friendlier and likely to strike up a conversation out west. Being from New York, that was a culture shock for me. Since people mostly keep to themselves here lol. Yes. I don't see anything explicitly wrong with chatting with more people. After all, if you didn't interact with strangers, how would you get to know people? Isn't that the whole premise behind Reddit? Start a conversation with a complete stranger? Yes. It's American culture to speak with strangers.